Let's talk now about the issue of protecting a worksheet. Protecting a worksheet is a good idea in a couple of situations. One being if you have a workbook and you're going to give it to someone else, and part of that workbook is formulas that you are concerned someone else may accidentally overwrite. They might change them, they might delete them. That would be a problem. Or it can be useful for your own workbook that you're just going to be using yourself. If you realize that there's a chance that you might just accidentally change some formula that you shouldn't or delete some formula that you shouldn't, well, you may want to use protection to help you in this case also. Now, to understand protection, you need to realize that it's a two-step process to properly handle protection in your worksheet. Now, the first step is to unlock those cells that you want users to be able to change. And you say, but wait a minute, I haven't locked any cells. Well, by default, every cell in a workbook is locked. Now, you don't go in and tell it to lock the cells. Excel does that automatically. So if I were to look right here in this one cell, I have a worksheet right here where we're doing a simple loan amortization table. I go to Format, and do you notice where right here, lock cell is actually pushed in? In other words, that feature is selected right now. That cell is locked. Every cell in this worksheet is locked because that's what Excel does by default. If a cell is locked and protection is turned on, you can't change that cell. You cannot type anything into that cell. However, if protection is not turned on, then whether or not the cell is locked doesn't matter at all. So right now, we're going to leave everything as default. Everything is locked. If I go to Review and then Protect Sheet, that right now we're going to leave all of these options as they are for default. So let's tell it OK. Now let me come back here and try to change the amount of principal. I can't do it. I'm trying to type something into that cell, and Excel tells me that the cell or chart I'm trying to change is protected and read-only. Well, I can go to another cell, try to type in something. No, it says I can't change it either. I can come down here, try to type in something. Again, I get that same message. Now, it's good that this area down here is locked, but it is not good that I can't change things in these three cells. To fix that then, I'm going to first unprotect my worksheet. I'm going to go back to my Home tab. I've got these three cells selected. I'm going to go to Format. And down here where it says Lock Cell, notice that is highlighted right now, which means, in other words, it's selected. I'm going to click that. If you go back to it now, you'll see that these cells are no longer locked. To really see the impact that has, I've got to go back to Protect My Sheet. I'm going to leave everything as is by default there for right now. Now I'm going to come back here. I can change the principal, I can change the interest rate, and I can change the number of payments. Let's come down here and try to change something. I can't do it. I can't change anything down here because the only cells that were unlocked were these three. So right now I can change these three and I can't change anything else. That's really just the way I want it to be. However, notice if I try to change something else, it tells me to modify a protected cell, first remove the protection using the Unprotect Sheet command. But if I gave this to someone else and they can read, they can go back and undo this feature I put on it. So let's go back to Unprotect Sheet, and let me show you how you can make it a little stronger. This time let's go back to Protect Sheet, but we'll give it a password. Give it a password. I'm just going to use the word test. Tell it OK. It makes me type it in again. OK. Now I can, of course, change these three cells, but let me come down here and try to change these. And I get my message. It says, well, I need to go to the Unprotect Sheet command. Well, that's okay. I can read that. I go up here to Unprotect Sheet. But now I can't make the change unless I know the password. So that would be very beneficial in keeping users from changing formulas in your worksheet if you put a password on it and they don't have that password. Let me show you one other feature that I like also, and that is when I'm turning the protection on. Here's another feature I like to do. Right now it says allow users of this workbook to select locked cells and select unlocked cells. I'm going to take the check mark away from the first option. I'm going to simply allow them to select unlocked cells but not locked cells. I'm not going to put a password on this particular one. Tell it OK. Of course I can change these three. Notice I come down here, I try to click here. I try to change them, I can't even click in these cells. The only cells in this workbook that I can change are these three. So I have told Excel to let users only to select unlocked cells, which are these three. I won't even let them select any cells that are locked. So that just kind of gives you a little bit more control over the workbook in terms of what users can and cannot change. So to summarize, the purpose of protection is to make it so that users, others, and yourself cannot accidentally overwrite or delete any formulas that we're concerned about that we might mess up. In order to make protection work properly, there are two steps have to be done in a particular order. The first step is to highlight those cells you want users to be able to change and to unlock them. That is done under the Format option. Okay, we don't want this to be selected then. Then we turn protection on. When we turn it on, we'd give it a password, and then we would allow users only to select unlocked cells. We won't let them select any cells that are locked. And that will give you a stronger workbook. That will keep users or yourself from being able to accidentally make changes to your workbook that you don't want them to be able to make.